Yeah, this is a prime place. That's what I have.
Those are one of the tastiest things ever. Yeah. So much better than that.
Have me come back on this.
Yeah. That's good. If it closed down.
I didn't wear the shorts after. I'm glad I didn't.
Yes.
No, I
If I go, either go.
We think this is a young yak. Al the yak.
One white one. Right in the middle.
And now we visit the Erdene Zuu Monastery, which is probably the earliest surviving Buddhist monastery in all of Mongolia. It is located in the Overkhangai province, approximately 1 kilometer northeast from the center of Karakorum and adjacent to the ancient city of Karakorum. It is part of the Orkhon Valley Cultural Landscape World Heritage Site. The monastery is affiliated with the Gelug sect of Tibetan Buddhism. Abtai Sain Khan, ruler of Khalkha Mongols and grandfather of Zanabazar, ordered construction of the Erdene Zuu Monastery in 1585 after his meeting with the third Dalai Lama and the declaration of Tibetan Buddhism as the state religion of Mongolia. Stones from the nearby ruins of the ancient Mongol capital of Karakorum were used in its construction. Planners attempted to create a surrounding wall that resembled a Tibetan Buddhist rosary featuring 108 stupas, 108 being a sacred number in Buddhism. But this objective was probably never achieved. The monastery's temples and walls were painted and the Chinese-style roof covered with green tiles. The monastery was damaged in 1688 during one of the many wars between the Dzungars and Khalkha Mongols. Locals dismantled the wooden fortifications of the abandoned monastery after that time. It was rebuilt in the 18th century and by 1872 had a full 62 temples and housed up to 1,000 monks. In 1939, the communist leader Khorloogiin Choibalsan ordered the monastery destroyed as part of a purge that obliterated hundreds of monasteries in Mongolia and killed over 10,000 monks. 3 small temples and the external wall with the stupas survived the initial onslaught, and by 1944, Joseph Stalin pressured Choibalsan to maintain the monastery as a showpiece for international visitors, such as U.S. Vice President Henry Wallace, to prove that the communist regime allowed freedom of religion. During the 4 decades that followed, it became Mongolia's only functioning monastery. After the fall of communism in Mongolia in 1990, the monastery was turned over to the lamas, and Erdene Zuu once again became a place of worship. Today, Erdene Zuu remains an active Buddhist monastery, as well as a museum that is open to tourists.
1885 started building by Aftay Khan, which is one of the descendant of Genghis Khan, and about like 1,000 monks used to live and do the chanting and learning Buddhism. And these stupas are like about 108 of the stupas are surrounded this temple, because 108 is a holy number for the Buddhism.
It was Ugana's idea. Before it got hot.
So those paintings surrounded on the wall, they all Dalai Lama's paintings. So we have how many of them for now?
Yeah, with the cowl. And it's just made of monks. In the ritual, monks will consecrate alcohol beverages or even blood from the skull cups. That symbolizes the Western faith.
I thought that was correct. So they got the latest one. Can we take photographs?
Oh, here you can take a picture.
So how many are there?
These look a bit like the pictures you
Roman kind, yeah.
So there's no...
No, there's no Buddhist kind. This is like European.
First Dalai Lama, 1391 to 1474.
He always wanted Tibet to be not China, so he always declared he's afraid from China. So China doesn't like him. And last year he went to India and met a guy who helped him to escape from China. And they were, I saw on news that they were meeting each other.
The 7 years in Tibet movie, where when the Chinese invaded and they all had to eventually to He was only a young boy at that stage.
Yeah, he was a young boy, and he escaped from China and entered to the India.
Tibet into India.
And then the guy who helped with him too.
Yeah.
So he met him last year. So after
It was a long, long time.
Place for the praying and the meditation, and it's the first complex with the monastery. This one, the temples are the first temples of this monastery, or even the first Buddhist temples of Mongolia. They all were built in late 16th century to the beginning of the 17th century by the founder of this monastery and his successors. They're just used for praying. It's not used for like any chanting, the ceremonies. So that's why they are called the three main praying temples. And each temple, the houses like the big clay, the statues of Buddhas, the protectors, and some bodhisattvas. Yeah, and so they are called West Praying Temple, Main one, and East Praying Temple. And this style of the church is the white stupas. They are like tombs, but it's not real tombs. The Memorial stupa. This is the right one, the tomb of Buddha, who was the founder of this monastery. The right one, which grants he was the father head of the Mongolia. And two small temples on both two sides, you should see like the meditation. And each the Buddhism of Mongolia divided into four sects, which are the yellow, red, white, and the black. And the red and the yellow hats, the sects, are more popular in Mongolia and in Tibet. So in Mongolian Buddhism, there are 10 protectors. They protect teachings of Buddhism and its practitioners. And this temple was dedicated to one of them in the 1675. And I mean, this temple was built for this protector in 1675, and he's called the White Tsampa. Yeah. And in Mongolia, and we believe that if someone to show the respect to him, he promotes all the possible success to everyone. Yeah, and he was painted with the mineral, the pigment, and the cotton in the 18th century. This is like called tanka. And the bottom part of the painting, you can see the two monks. They are the first and the second Bodhi Lamas of Mongolia. And the head of Mongolian Buddhism are called the Bodhi Lama, which means the saint monks. And there were the 9 Bodhi Lamas in Mongolian Buddhism. And the first and the second were Mongolian. The next 7 Greek and all the Tibetan. The first one is called the Zanavaza. He was a very talented man. And his great-grandfather established this monastery in 1586. You know, this is the first Buddhist monastery from Mongolia. It belongs to the 3rd wave of Buddhism in the 16th century. It's called Erdene Zuu, which means like a treasure of enlightenment. Okay? And the paintings on the wall were painted in the late 17th century. They are the oldest wall painting in this monastery. They were painted with mineral pigment directly on the wall. Since they were painted, they never restored or untouched. It's it's the original wall painting. But in other time they were covered by smokes. And the smokes of fire, incense and other lights covered the wall and it became dark, and some museum steps just clean it up. Yeah, and it's called a ganza painting. The ganza is like all the stuffs and the belongings of a protectors. Painting is called a ganza. I mean, there are some protectors, clothes, the weapons, or vehicle, and offerings were painted. And also you can see some Buddhist musical lead. Horse is like the jealousy. Cow represents obstinance. The bird is a desire of a human being. But in Mongolian ganza painting, there are also some like two, the hampat, the camels, the ibex, the gazelle, and the wolves are painted. Yeah, this is called a ganza. And then also you can see like the one of like a mythical. It's not animal in order to walk. It's the snowman or like the Bigfoot.
Yes.
The Yeti.
Yes.
Is this Bigfoot here?
Yes, the black one behind the hill is blue. The Bigfoot is the snowman.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some the Bigfoots painted on the tree of the wall paintings. The Erdene Zuu Monastery is famous for its temples wall paintings in Mongolia. But this is the oldest one. And the temples, the wall paintings were painted in the 18th to the 19th century, also with the mineral, the pigment. Okay.
So it's a dog, there's
Yeah. It appeared around the 10th century as a combination of Chinese scroll painting, Nepal painting, and Kashmir painting. That they are usually like they place it in upright in a rectangular shape. While there are few that deals with the subjects of a mandala art that are square in Buddhism. Yeah, and its content, they cover the various subjects, including the Tibetan astrology, pharmacology, theology, the mandala, images of the lamas, Buddha, and gemstones as a pigment. So, and Tanka art started to develop in Mongolia in the middle of 17th century. Before that time, the monks of Mongolia used to make the image of the Buddha or the deity in brass casting or the clay, the sculpture in Mongolia. Yeah. Around 20% of all the objects in the museum are the tankas. Most of the tankas were made in the 18th to 19th century by the Mongols, and the painted tankas usually made by the monks and some educated the pilgrims, and the embroidery and the patchworks only made by the women. Yeah. And in this world there are the 4 small painted tankas and the 3 big patchworks here. And most of the patchworks of the Mongolian were decorated by the golden and silver without threads. And the 4 examples, see, Mahakala is the main worshipping deity of a yellow hat saint. And it's like the wrathful, the manifestation of a Buddhist of compassion. Yeah, and he is the protector of Dalai Lamas. Do you know the Dalai Lama?
Yes.
The head of yellow hat sect is called Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama meaning is the ocean of wisdom. One of the rulers gave the title Dalai Lama to Tibetan head of yellow sect. Since the time the heads of the yellow sect still the call is a Dalai Lama. It's important for Dalai Lama.
So this is fabric that's been appliqued onto the,
Yes,
onto
like
a background?
yes. Silk.
Those edges are very precisely done.
Yes. Like applique, yeah. So this
Yeah.
you call it pattern.
Is this still being done today?
Yes, and then, especially in the Ulaanbaatar, there's some that will still make the patchwork around applique nowadays. Yeah. It is like a wheel. The human had beaks like this. See that? This is not head of a human being. They are the heads of enemies.
These are heads of that
Yeah,
right?
but in Buddhism there are no enemies, no devils. Enemy and the devils are like our sins or bad behavior.
So it's sort of like the bad side of human nature.
Yes, they all the have represent our like
Yes.
bad behavior. Like this.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and so there's some more, you know, the Pagatankas here. And typical, you know, the tanka has the printed or embroidered mounted on a piece of the colorful silk. And painting a tanka, they usually starts by stretching a piece of cotton on the wooden frame along its sides. Then the certain type of gesso is sprayed, you know, over both the front and the back of the canvas to block the holes, and then it's graved off to produce smooth surfaces. And then afterwards, some orienting lines are drawn to guide the sketching. Yeah, yeah, and by, you know, the following the fixed proportion, the images are then roughly drawn. And in a tanka, you know, the red, black, red, blue, green, and the yellow are the basic colors used in the coloring. The painters apply the pigment on the sketch. And the final stage, you know, the facial, the features, and eyes are finished in a sacred done, only after a ritual held in a fixed day. This is the tanka. But in Mongolia, the scientists couldn't find out the techniques of making a mineral pigment. I mean, the techniques were lost during the communist time. No one don't know. And so this is a printed tanka. This one. And on the yellow, so you know, the wood block.
Oh, the wood block.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is like.
Yeah, this, you know, the picture
yeah.
was carved in the woods, and
Yeah.
it was applied black ink and the press in the silk.
Yeah.
This is a very tiny block. Yeah.
You're so good.
Like it's like one of the protector, the powerful angels, we said, like in Buddhism. And look, on the top of the Buddha's head, you see in the middle, the blue one?
Yes.
That's called the Garuda.
Oh,
And two horse and a wing, the mythical bird.
mythical bird.
One of the powerful animals of the Buddhism, they call the Garuda. Okay.
There's a dragon here too.
So this is the west, the praying temple. This temple was built by the second son of the king in the early 7th century. I said that the three praying temples house the place statues of the Buddhas, yeah, and each temple has like these three Buddhas in the backside of the temples, and most of these statues in the temples were made in the middle of the 18th century by clay. But during the destruction time, 1930s, all of them were damaged. And after this monastery, the museum, they were restored, repaired several times. And every the middle ones in the temples are the historical Buddha, who was the father of the So, and in this temple, there is this old image. It's a date of 18. Yeah, and we call Buddha, the Buddha Shakyamuni. And on the right hand Buddha, there's a Buddha of pastime, which we call Kasayapa. And on the left for the Buddha of the future time, the Maitreya. So they are the Buddhas of 3 times, the past, present, and the future. So they are like represent the Buddha was easy, Buddha is easy, and the Buddha will exist. And on the pole, there are the dragons rolling down. And then the dragons are one of the powerful elements of Buddhism. It represents the strength. And only the dragons of this temple made of sheep's wool and covered with the clay. I mean, inside the dragon there's a sheep's wool. And another temple was just made of the clay, or some of them just the drawn wool. That's made of sheep's wool. And the paintings on the walls of this temple were also painted in the 18th to 19th century with inner pigment. And in Buddhism, most of, you know, the temples usually that you quote with, you know, the image of the lamas, the deities, one of the long life deities. I think he was painted in many versions. It symbolizes this temple lasts for the many years, which are like a mandala of the deity, and then offering mandala. This is offering mandala. And the mandala of deity is usually painted on the wall in the room. Sometimes it's made of like the colorful the sand on the table that represent like a universe and the focus on meditation. And all the deities, the Buddhas have their own like the holy the places. Barley flour, sugar, and gold fat. We call it the torma in Buddha. Some of the things, yeah. Most important. Every three temples have a double vault. This is a crane hall. Here, this is like a path for a crane. And the people go around the temple like clockwise. And they just go around. Temple like
Be careful, don't kill yourself, don't kill your hammer too.
More importantly.
But what I find this stuff fascinating, because I can compare like in Christianity and that doesn't look like a nice sign with the fingers.
This is the very first temple of this monastery. This temple was built by the Abdahan in 1586. The history of this monastery comes from a year of this temple, 1586. And it's called the main temple, and it's the first Buddhist temple of Mongolia. So, and is that main temple or the temple of this monastery? And there is the protector of this monastery still here, and he's called Gomgur. And in 1580s, the founder of this monastery met with the third Dalai Lama. Then he brought his early stone sculpture from Tibet. This is the time the monks of this monastery still worship to him, and they believe that he will protect this monastery until even the half of the bricks of the buildings are left. This one is called the pump. Yeah. And the left one is only one, the single female protector, which is called the Shri Devi. I said there are the 10 protectors here. 9 of them are male, this is the female one. And she's the protector of Lhasa in Tibet at the Lunar New Year celebration in January or February. On the eve of the Lunar New Year, she visits all the families of Mongolia. Yeah, but she can't sing. Like a Santa Claus. That evening, we put the 3 small pieces of ice cubes and outside of the gears in the house. They are like a good offerings of the mind, the speech and the body to her and her meal. Yeah, and the first day of the Lunar New Year, we believe that she brings us like sacrifice, the good health, and everything good.
What's her name?
Shri Devi. Shri Devi.
Devi.
Or in Sanskrit, in Tibet, she's called like the Paltan Lama. Paltan Lama. Yeah.
Is she always depicted on a donkey or whatever animal?
Mule. Yeah, yes. Always a mule. Yeah, and her moves very fast.
mule is
Yes.
fast.
Yeah, he can turn around the world 3,000 times in 1 second.
It's
Yes.
a fast mule.
Yes, very fast. And there is a small story behind her. In ancient time, that there was the powerful devil who destroyed the temples, did the bad things. One day, the Buddha.
Seen here is Mahakala, a deity common to Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. According to Hinduism, Mahakala is the consort of the Hindu goddess Kali. In Chinese, Japanese, and most forms of Tibetan Buddhism, Mahakala appears as a protector deity. In Sanskrit, the name Maha means great, and Kala means time, death. Therefore, Mahakala translates as beyond time or death. The literal Tibetan translation is Nagpo Chenpo, although when referring to this deity, Tibetans usually use the word Ginpo. Mahakala is often depicted as being extremely frightening. He has 4 arms, 3 eyes, and is of the brilliance of 10 million black fires of dissolution, and dwells in the midst of 8 cremation grounds. He is adorned with 8 skulls, seated on 5 corpses, holds a trident, a drum, a sword, and a scythe in his hands. He is adorned with ashes from the cremation ground and surrounded by numbers of loudly shrieking vultures and jackals. Among his side is his consort Kali, and they both represent the flow of time. Both Mahakala and Kali Mahakali represent the ultimate destructive power of Brahman, and they are not bounded by any rules or regulations. They have the power to dissolve even time and space into themselves and exist as void at the dissolution of the universe. Together, Mahakala and Kali function to annihilate men, women, children, animals, and indeed the world and entire universe without mercy, because they are Kala, or time, in the personified form, and time is not bound by anything, and time does not show mercy, nor does it wait for anything or anyone.
Is there significance, the Buddhists, when they hold their hands, sometimes they use this finger and sometimes this finger?
The protector's hand gesture like this. Sometimes it's called rabbit.
Oh.
Yeah, it means like the word of the eagle or the devil. Yeah, and this is the kind of like this one. This is like represent like knowledge.
This is teaching.
Yes, this
That's
one.
a common one.
Like this.
Two hands together.
Yeah, this is a gesture for teaching. So, and this is also mandala. It's an offering mandala. Yeah, and the 15,000 pieces of red corals used to make it. This is the common. And the 2 sides, there are the 8 auspicious signs. The most important signs in Buddhism. The umbrella is like a protection of a human being from the harm and the bad things. And the pearl fish like represent unity and the peace. And the third one is a vase of immortality, and then lotus flower represent the purity of human being. And the conch, conch shell, this is a musical instrument. But in symbol, it represents the beautiful sounds of Buddhist teaching. And then endless knot, this represents infinity. The banner, this is called the banner they are called. It's like a battery of Buddhist teaching. And the last one is a wheel. It's a wheel of life, wheel of Buddhist teachings. And it has 8 faults. They are like represent, the right understanding, the right livelihood, right speech, right action, like etc. And all the symbols and signs have their all the meanings in the Buddhism. Okay. Temple was built by the father of Zanabasa in 1610. The Zanabas was the first Bodhisattva from Mongolia, yeah? And his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather built these three temples from 16th and 17th century. And I mean, we have seen like the Buddha's old image and middle age image in previous temples, yeah? And this temple has his childhood image. This is a young Buddha. And when he was young, he was the prince of northern India, what is now called Nepal, about 2,500 years ago. And I mean, this is like his image before he reached the enlightenment. You could see that they got. And this one is Bodhisattva of compassion. It's called Avalokiteshvara. He has so many different forms, and all are forms of the most worshipful body of God. And in Buddhism, the Dalai Lamas are believed to be the reincarnations of this, the Bodhisattva of compassion. And he has 4 arms, I mean 2 hands on his chest, look like the praying gesture. But this is not a praying gesture. It's like a holding a jewels gesture. In his hand, there are 3 jewels. But the jewels is not gold or the British stone. It's like the Buddha, Buddhist teachers, and the Lama. They hold 3 jewels of Buddhism. And it's called holding jewels gesture. Yeah. And the left one is the Tsenker Lama, who was the father. And in Buddhism, there's only one Buddha who wished to die the purpose. And another Buddha is also right from like the Buddhist teachers. Okay? The Buddha on the right, in the middle, is called the Buddha. And his right hand always hangs down over the knee. That's like he's touching the earth. Something is called the earth weakness. And the left hand is holding the begging bowl and a meditation gesture.
In der Hand Lotusblume und meistens die